Hello, universe. Welcome to the most spectacular wrestling podcast you will find on the internet. You are listening to Tag Me In, bro. I'm Joe Tantillo, and as always, I'm seated next to my terrific co-host, Taryn O'Connor. Say hi to the people, Taryn.
Hi to the people, Taryn.
If you're new to the show, the format is simple. Each week, we discuss all the magnificent moments, turbulent times, and stunning surprises that professional wrestling has to offer.
So turn your radio up and your opinions down, because we've got some hot tags coming up NXT, which means next.
Give me a hell yeah! I said give me a hell yeah!
Hey there, universe. It's Taryn. Today on Tag Me In, bro, we're going to be talking about the go-home show before the Backlash pay-per-view. But we're going to start by talking about the fact that it's May, and it's like the warmest it has been since probably August. The high today was 85 degrees. It is sunny. It is so warm. Everyone is feeling like summer. It is so nice to finally have warm weather. I didn't think it was really going to finally emerge, and I'm glad that it did. And what a better way to celebrate the weather than by listening to a podcast about wrestling. So everyone get excited. We have got a great show for you today. You don't want to miss one single second of Tag Me In Bro content. So go on Twitter right now and follow us at Tag Me In Bro. Now I hope everyone is excited for the show because it is about to go down in a big way. Today, tomorrow, and every day we are talking wrestling. First things first, we will cover our SmackDown speed through, where we will give you our analysis of the most important bits of last night's show. After that, we've got our Hi to the People segment, where we want to engage with you guys to find more about your views on Becky Lynch. Would you rather keep seeing her as a face, or would you rather see her turn heel? Then we're going to move on to our main event, where we will be talking about the question on everyone's mind this week. Then we will close out the show with our stars of the night. This week, the question on everyone's mind will be what's going to happen at Backlash. We will be doing predictions and talking all about the card in our main event today. So now, let's get straight to the SmackDown speed through. Woo! Here are the only 5 things you need to know about SmackDown Live this week. 5, The Miz TV with Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy about the U.S. Championship. Number 4, AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura at it again. Number 3, Samoa Joe just wants to fight somebody at some point for a title. Number 2, Big Cass and, shall we say, not Daniel Bryan. And number 1, the women's main event. 6-woman tag match main event. Yeah. Okay, so starting with The Miz TV. The Miz TV segment opened the show, and The Miz had on his guest, Jeff Hardy, who is the U.S. champion, who is talking about his fight on Sunday against Randy Orton for the U.S. title. Now, it's a little hard to come at it this way. Like, I know it's a little harsh, but The Miz is the only interesting thing about this feud between Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy, other than the fact that we're going to see a real-life vintage WWE match happen in front of us in some time vortex possibility on Sunday. And for that, I am actually very excited. But the only real reason that they have to be fighting is that they at some point cut off each other's entrances. To be fair, is there a more WWE Legends reason to fight? I don't think so. But it's not as compelling as maybe some of the other storylines that we are seeing. The Miz tried to steer the pot, and it was it was interesting. The Miz is so compelling that it felt like it was great, but what it really felt like was that there was kind of an empty pool of reasons for these things to be happening. Every time he kind of reached into his Mary Poppins bag to be and here's why you're fighting, really, it was still just kind of you don't respect each other, but you do, but you don't, and you're both faces. And then Shelton Benjamin came out and lost, which was pointless. It just felt like it felt kind of like a strange way to start the show. Randy Orton stood tall at the end, which does make me, we'll get to this later, but it does make me think that Jeff Hardy may be retaining on Sunday, and I honestly think they probably just needed Jeff Hardy to have a very strong first competitor, and I think in those moments, more than any other, we see the WWE turn to an absolute legend like Randy Orton. Moving on to number 4, AJ and Shinsuke. Wow, Shinsuke Nakamura really does not want AJ Styles to have any more children, so help him. This happened obviously a lot later in the show. Shinsuke like wanted an apology. AJ Styles came out, was like, if he wants an apology, he can come and get it. Shinsuke did not then come and get it. Instead, Samoa Joe entered the ring entered the arena. And once his speech was done, then Shinsuke's music hit. He came out, low blow to AJ Styles. Yet again. Again, this won't help him on Sunday because it's a no DQ match. But just, we're really driving home that point. We are not leaving it alone. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. Will we have a new WWE champion? Wait till the main event to see what we think. Moving on, another part of that segment, as I kind of previously mentioned, number 3, Samoa Joe came out, and after last week, before the Greatest Royal Rumble, when he talked about how if Roman Reigns won, he was excited to take the Universal title off of Roman Reigns at Backlash. He now talked about how at Backlash he's excited to just defeat Roman Reigns because why not? But that no matter who wins, AJ Styles or Shinsuke Nakamura, he would like to be next in line for the WWE Heavyweight Championship. I understand that a lot of heels use this character development tool of just being all that matters is the gold. We see it a lot with Kevin Owens. He's the prize fighter. Would you see it with Samoa Joe, whose whole thing is just that I'm the best, so I want a belt. So I want the belt. So that's what I want. But it's still it just feels a little misplaced. It doesn't feel focused. It feels like he's really just kind of picking any belt, any title with anybody, and is just trying to pick a fight so that he can hold a belt. And there is potentially an interesting character arc there, but it doesn't feel like that's the character arc they're pursuing. It feels like they're trying to make A, him a top heel, and B, the belts just as important because they are the belts, not just because they are a belt. And it doesn't really feel like he wants the WWE Heavyweight Championship because of the prestige of the title. It feels like he just wants it to wear something around his waist. It feels like if I got him a general, just a belt tomorrow from the store, he would be just as happy, which is not the point. It doesn't keep a lot of prestige with the belt. It doesn't show a lot of character development. So it was a little odd. That being said, Samoa Joe has been severely underutilized since coming back. Again, it is he is just recently off the injured list, so I understand it takes time to put people back into storylines and for those to build organically and naturally and have the time to do so. But he really should be a top heel. Samoa Joe is one of the best heels in the company, so I understand why they want to throw him directly into a title picture. I just wish they could pick a title. That they could, no matter what, choose a title and let him focus on that. The way that The Miz focuses on the IC title, no matter what brand he's on or where he is. I think that would just really benefit the character and would reinvest us in watching Samoa Joe, not just watching some guy fight some other guy in hopes of being better. So that's my kind of 2 cents on that. Number 2 is the least okay moment in the show, which is where Big Cass tries to address his feud with Daniel Bryan. And he talks about how Daniel Bryan is small like the WWE universe. But he doesn't really say small. He says he's short, like all of us. And then when Daniel Bryan's music hits, instead of D-Bry coming out, we got a little person dressed up like Daniel Bryan, who then took a big boot to the face from Big Cass. And I think that it was meant to incite nuclear heat on Big Cass. I really just think ultimately it was done in poor taste, and the kind of poor taste that, to be honest, a little like James Ellsworth winning the first ever women's Money in the Bank, wasn't worth the joke, wasn't worth what they had hoped it would accomplish. Even if it had accomplished what they wanted, which was this nuclear heat, I don't think people placed it on Big Cass, at least initially. I think people placed it on the fact that the company had allowed something so kind of offensive and inappropriate to happen. So shame on you, WWE. We try to stay positive on this podcast. I really try to be positive about wrestling. But kids watch this, and that's the number one reason we stay positive. We're it's a family show, meant for kids, no problem. Not cool. not cool, not kosher, not about it. Please don't do it again, because it was very, very upsetting. It didn't make Cass more of a bad guy, it made you guys more of a bad guy. And with that, I end my rant. And number 1, to end the show on a high note, we had the women's main event. The women's 6-woman tag match main event, Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and Asuka versus Carmella and the Iconics. The match was fine, but I think what was really exciting about it was how well all of the baby faces performed. I think the Iconics very much so held their own, which I think deserves like a huge kind of like congratulations and yay, because those 3 women are like very hard to hold your own against. But we got to see Charlotte do a killer moonsault onto like the arena floor. We got to see Asuka like win with the Asuka lock. All amazing. We got to see Carmella run away like clutching her title. Very, very exciting. But something that I think is the most interesting, which we'll talk a little bit about in our Hive of the People segment, is that we're starting to see a little bit of development with Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch had a segment where she kind of admitted that she blamed herself for her and Asuka losing the week before, and carrying into this match, she was definitely like first out. And I think it'll be interesting to see if and how they continue to utilize that building of self-frustration and of frustration with her performance, especially among her contemporaries and her equals. And I don't know where that will lead, if we'll see a re-energized, invigorated, like, babyface Becky Lynch, or if that frustration could amount to her taking it out on someone and us seeing a heel Becky Lynch. But I think the fact that they're even giving her those moments, and maybe I'm clinging too much just because I would love to see Becky Lynch in a storyline, but I think them giving her those moments is really promising for some really, really interesting character development. So yay, women's main event. And they got to main event SmackDown. Always great when the women get to, and they absolutely were the highlight of the show for me, at least. So yeah, that concludes our SmackDown summary. We thought that the episode was honestly very boring. We thought there were a couple high spots, but you should just read spoilers for this one and catch up at Backlash. But let us know your thoughts on social media. Speaking of social media, it is time to say hi to the people. This week on Hi to the People, we want to know your thoughts on the Irish lass kicker, Becky Lynch. Would you rather keep seeing Becky Lynch as a face or see her turn heel? I think either way, we'd still love to see her have more television time. But we'll be running a Twitter poll for the next 72 hours and discussing the results here on our show next week. So let us know exactly what you think. You can vote on Twitter by tweeting at us and using the hashtag #HotTag, or by emailing us at tagmeandbro@gmail.com to share your opinion and maybe have your thoughts read out on the show. Every week we read out some of our favorite responses. And speaking of, we're going to talk about the results of last week's topic. So last week's question was based around the shambolic pay-per-view, The Greatest Royal Rumble, where we asked, who would you guys like to see come in at number 50? Obviously a prestigious spot. We gave you 4 options that were just off the top of our heads, because obviously there were a plethora to choose from. And overwhelmingly, you guys chose Dean Ambrose. 45% had Dean Ambrose. The next closest was 31% of the vote that went to Johnny Gargano. 18% went to Samir Singh, which is more percentage of a vote than I think will ever go to Samir Singh for anything in the WWE. And 6% said Jason Jordan. Obviously a long shot. We know his injury is going to keep him out for just over a year, but don't those long shots make the greatest Royal Rumble stories? But we looked at some of your comments because we love hearing what you guys think. Greg the Grey at The Best Decree said, because the pay-per-view is a joke, I'm a vote Sing. And let me tell you, I think that is a very valid voting strategy. Some people did note that Dean Ambrose is not ready, which I knew that it would be the early side of his recovery time. But I totally echo Brooke J at Brooke Shadow BJ. It would be freaking awesome to see Dean come back in the Middle East for his return. And James Rankin at Sprayerman JJ said that would be so cool to get a Dean Ambrose return. His timetable for return was sometime soon. I thought as well. So we were right there with you, James. We thought the exact same thing. We're obviously sad that we didn't get to see Dean Ambrose. And number 50 was the announced Chris Jericho. And we love seeing Chris Jericho. Do not get me wrong. But I thought we could have maybe had a surprise, like maybe just one. But it was not in the cards. But we'll see next week, maybe our thoughts on Becky Lynch will bring her some TV time and some new energy. So let us know what you think on Twitter. And now it's time for the main event.
Joining me for our main event and our Backlash predictions is my co-host Tommy Rowe.
What's up?
Tommy, do you want to take us through the Backlash card?
Absolutely, I do. So, this Sunday is the first real pay-per-view since WrestleMania because the Greatest Royal Rumble was a steaming pile of shit. So there are 8 matches coming up at this Sunday's Backlash, and 5 championships total being defended. We're skipping the Cruiserweight Championship. There's no Raw Tag Team Championship match, but every other championship, both women's, both mid-cards, and I'm sorry, not the Universal Championship, because of course you'd assume that your world title is being defended on a pay-per-view, but I guess they don't have $800,000 lying around for Brock Lesnar this week?
I would be truly astonished if Backlash generated anywhere near $800,000.
Hey,
truly
it's in,
shocked. Truly shocked is what I would be.
It's in New Jersey, and I'm not going to say anything else beyond the fact that it's in New Jersey.
We both stared at each other and had nothing to say about that. Truly nothing.
But what we'll start with are the non-title matches. So first up is Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Taryn, who do you have and why?
Well, let me tell you, Tommy.
I will say ditto on that sentiment of, I also don't care. There's no reason that this is happening. There's no feud here between these people.
No, and in a terrible way, I don't want anyone to win.
I want them both to lose.
And not because I'm trying to be negative, because we do try to, keep it positive.
Oh, absolutely.
But the reason I would say at this point that I want them both to lose is, actually a positive reason, which is that I understand that, I think in my heart of hearts, I think that Braun and Bobby are going to win because Bobby Lashley's, big debut pay-per-view match. But I do not want to see Sami and Kevin's momentum crushed in their first time back on Raw in these new roles.
Yeah.
Their pay-per-view match. I guess instead of saying I want everyone to lose, I would prefer that everyone could win, but nobody can. I hate double countouts though.
Yeah, hey, that happened at the not pay-per-view.
So very, very possible. But
who's your actual pick if you had to choose?
My pick is Braun and Bobby. It's Bobby Lashley's first pay-per-view. They're not going to set him up to fail.
Yeah, I have them for a different reason, which is they need to lend some legitimacy to the Greatest Royal Rumble, and if a guy just beat 49 other people and set the record for most eliminations, he's not going to lose in his first match back. It's too bad that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, despite being, at least in Montreal, the most over people in the whole goddamn world, are not going to win, but they're not going to win. And that's too bad. Next up is Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass.
If it's not Daniel Bryan, I'll throw myself out of a building.
To be honest with you, I understand where you're coming from because everyone wants Daniel Bryan to win always. I think that Big Cass is going to win because Daniel Bryan doesn't need to. Daniel Bryan just came off of an amazing performance at the Greatest Royal Rumble. As was told to us many times by Corey Graves during SmackDown Live, his chest looked like hamburger meat, which is, how
so
gross is that, right?
So gross.
Yeah, because you're picturing it right now.
And it's so upsetting.
And it's so much, more
worse.
Okay than that, almost.
But,
Yeah. I think Big Cass is going to win because he needs some legitimacy. After this week on SmackDown Live, I think they're making him to a big bully, and bullies haven't been winning recently, and we just got to teach those kids some life lessons, Bullies win. So,
it's the WWE lesson.
Absolutely.
I think that's very fair. I'm going to pick Daniel Bryan because my heart says Daniel Bryan, and because Lord in heaven knows I want it to be Daniel Bryan, but I think that I think it will go your way.
Cool. Next up of the final exhibition match, as in a match for nothing, is Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe, which was set off by Samoa Joe coming back and saying, "I'm bored now, I want a match." So that's what their feud is based on. It's more based on, I guess they were feuding last year,
trying to become the number one contender for the Universal Championship. Fine, whatever. We don't really need a feud for this to be exciting because everyone has an opinion about both of these guys. What is your opinion about how the match will go?
I actually think that because Roman Reigns did not win the championship at the Greatest Royal Rumble, that this has become, to me, one of the much more interesting matches on the card, because it can truly be an exhibition match. It can be two phenomenal superstars just fighting it out to, like, make a classic, which I am very excited for. I think that kind of playing both folds of it, in the same way that I said, like, Bobby Lashley's first pay-per-view match back, gotta make Bobby look strong. I think you could absolutely lend that same thought process to Samoa Joe and saying, like, what a way to reestablish a top heel than to put him against the guy and let him win in a situation where it costs Roman nothing. At that same point, though, Roman Reigns will have now lost in what is the biggest pay-per-view of the year and the only pay-per-view in the Middle East to happen live there. And I would be very surprised if they allowed him to lose this third match in a row. I do think that the ends justifies the means, and that I'm sure if he does, it is because we live in a world where we are simply counting down the days until Roman Knight reigns and his Universal title run. But you do start to build him as any legitimacy that he built in the lead up to WrestleMania is
gone.
super, super quickly diminished with every match he loses, especially to these very legitimate people.
I agree.
So in that way, I don't have a particularly strong gut feeling one way or the other. But I'm going to take it on the chin and follow my first reasoning and say that I think we're going to see Samoa Joe as the victor, because somebody has to be next in line for the WWE Heavyweight Championship. And I really do believe it will be Samoa Joe on SmackDown. And I think that they probably think Backlash is a very B-rate pay-per-view. And it's like I said, Roman has things in his future. So I think that, for me, that's the decision that's best for business. What about you?
I think, for me, I definitely will go with Samoa Joe. But for the reason that I think Brock Lesnar's going to run in on the match at the end. Roman does need to go over Brock Lesnar. He needs to win the title off of him. I think that's become very clear. Whether that's going to happen at SummerSlam, whether that's going to happen at Money in the Bank, I don't know. What I do know is that Samoa Joe is, for all intents and purposes, going to be the next person up for the WWE Championship, so he does need to win to give that claim any sort of legitimacy. And the only way that you can put someone over Roman who isn't Brock Lesnar at this point is by making the person who screwed him over Brock Lesnar. It could be Paul Heyman interfering in some way. I think there's going to be some shenanigans going into it.
So you do think they have $800,000 just sitting around?
So what the sheets tell us is that he gets like $200,000 for just showing up and not actually wrestling a match. And here's the thing: they made anywhere between $100 and $200 million for the Greatest Royal Rumble for doing that from the Saudi government. So here's the thing: Raw could just be 3 hours of Brock Lesnar at this point for like the next year, and they wouldn't run out of money. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. So now on to the championships that are being defended. So we'll start with the United States Championship. Champion Jeff Hardy versus Randy Orton. Who do you have, and why do you have them?
I have Jeff Hardy. I was very clear about this one, unlike the last ones where I was truly confused. I have Jeff Hardy. I sticking to kind of what I went over in the top 5, which is I think that to validate Jeff Hardy on a new brand, you have to put him up against like a certified legend to show that he's a worthy title holder. For that reason, I think they chose Randy Orton. It's a pitter-patter feud. I think it will end swiftly, and then they will move on to someone else.
Absolutely. I agree. I think Jeff Hardy's going to go over. I think there might be a chance of a Randy Orton heel turn at the end of the match, like a la Shinsuke, after the quote-unquote dream match at WrestleMania, which was actually super boring, if I'm honest. But, I choose Jeff Hardy definitely to go over Randy Orton. The other mid-card title being defended is the Intercontinental Championship, Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. I wish it is Seth Rollins versus The Miz. For some reason, I still don't know why it's not Finn Balor. I actually do know why it's the contractually obligated rematch. I understand, but I'm just a bitter, bitter man at this point. I'll give my prediction first for this one. I think that it doesn't make any sense for the Intercontinental Championship to go over to SmackDown when the United States Championship is going to stay there. So Seth Rollins will retain IMO, in my opinion. Who you got?
For the sake of being controversial,
Woo!
because I'll tell you, I want The Miz to win.
Okay.
I'd like The Miz to win because I enjoy when The Miz is the Intercontinental Champion.
I also enjoy that.
And for that reason, I choose The Miz. If you were to ask me logically, hey Taryn,
Does that make any sense?
Or like, how are they gonna show all those belts on those teeny tiny 2 hours?
Yeah.
I'd say I have no idea, Tommy. That's not my job. My job is not to know. That's someone else's job.
Yeah.
My job is to give my prediction based on what I want. And what I want is The Miz as the IC champion.
That is totally fair. I think that's a very bad choice in terms of getting points, but like I totally understand. Follow your heart.
But also, won't I be the only person to make this choice?
I mean, yeah, probably in the whole world, including like the people who write the show and determine who wins the Intercontinental Championship, who have also chosen Seth Rollins to retain it.
Oh, but how could it not be The Miz? But how? I understand. But
I think
how?
it would be very interesting from a writing perspective if you're right, purely from the perspective of it's just not going to happen. I can't believe that it would happen, but I will be very excited if it does. So I hope that it does.
So here's hoping.
Yeah. Next up are the women's championship matches. So let's start with SmackDown. That's Carmella the champion versus Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Who you got and why do you have them?
I have Carmella.
Sweet.
This is something that took me a long time to emotionally come to terms with. I am probably the big Charlotte Flair fan ever. And I think that she is the only rightful champion, maybe in the world, of women's wrestling. She's, I mean, to be fair, Asuka, but like, she is so wonderful. She's a great champion. She wears the belt well. I can't think of a heel who could possibly beat her on SmackDown, and that ultimately is why I think she will lose. I think there will be interference.
Nefarious means, absolutely.
Totally. Carmella's, one of the dirtiest players in the women's game. And I think that Billie Kay and Peyton Royce have not been present unintentionally or just for the sake of establishing themselves, because Carmella needs friends. And at this point, Tamina has been off of the air.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Someone I forgot existed literally until right now.
Natalya got moved to a different brand.
And turned face.
Yep. Lana is apparently back at the Performance Center, so certainly not performing
she teamed up
shows.
with Rusev, said like, yo, peace out, Aiden English, backstage this week.
But at any rate, the heels have fled. Like, the heels that could be Carmella's backup partners have fled. They said Absolution is dead. So Saz. But so I do think that we'll see some interference from the Iconics.
Yeah.
And that Carmella will retain. And that allows us to, I think, move on to greener pastures. Ultimately.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you on every point that you made. So, yeah. Let's move on to the Raw Women's Championship. The champion, Nia Jax, defends against Alexa Bliss. For this one, I have Nia Jax in probably a pretty big squash. Because I think with an 8-match card, it's going to be a really long show, and I don't see any of these matches going for a short amount of time. And if the internet is to be believed, Alexa Bliss is not wrestling at 100% of her ability due to surgeries that she's had, so chances are that she's going to get squashed. I think that would be really good. I've liked her Moment of Bliss segments on Raw. They're very funny. They do make me hate her. But I do think it's time to have another heel step up on Raw to take on Nia Jax. So that's why I've got Nia Jax. I don't know who will take over the mantle of like head heel going for it. I think Mickie James could be a cool choice, but that's prognosticating about something we are not prognosticating about right now. So I go with Nia Jax.
I also have Nia Jax. For almost this, like, on some level, similarly to Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss is an incredible champion. She's a great champion. She's been the only champion for what just starts to feel like a little too long. I was very excited to see Nia Jax take the title.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it is invalidating to a character like Nia Jax, which is like the irresistible force, like a truly dominating
and overcoming
presence.
bullying to like get shot down immediately after.
I mean, Bailey, this is your life. Shows that they have no problem.
But they didn't take the title off her.
They didn't, and then they learned their lesson.
Yes,
I
they
do
did.
believe. But I think that there is so much depth and complexity in the Raw women's division right now that as a face, Nia Jax versus the Riot Squad, so much interesting balance. Like, there's that like gang mentality versus like one woman standing alone as a babyface. And Nia Jax as a heel. Personally, I prefer Nia Jax as a heel. But in that situation, you've got great technicians like Bailey and Sasha Banks. You've got a heel Sasha who could go up against anybody and have a fighting chance at winning. You have someone like Ember Moon, a truly like, kind of an outlier, like a mystical force we haven't got to see fight that much. And I think that if you had all of those possibilities for what feel like really great feuds with Nia Jax, why would you take the belt off her?
I agree. I think if she were to drop the belt to Alexa and then leave the title picture, we just kind of be rehashing old stuff because Alexa Bliss has been the champion for so long. In the same way with Brock Lesnar, you just had every single person go up against him, and now that he's run through everybody, no one knows what's going to happen. I mean, hopefully he'll lose it eventually, but yeah, I think Nia Jax has the most upward possibility. So she is, I think, the best choice, and I'm glad that we agree. So finally, the world titles for the men. So we'll start with the one that isn't being defended, and say that Brock Lesnar will retain the Universal Championship against no one at this week's pay-per-view.
I think that is a safe bet.
Yes, I think so too. So the actual last match on the card, which, who knows, it might be the main event of the show, like it should have been at WrestleMania. But to be honest, that quality of match, probably not. But hey, it might actually main event the pay-per-view. So that's AJ Styles, the champion, versus Shinsuke Nakamura in a non-disqualification match for the WWE Championship. Who do you have, and why do you have them?
I have AJ Styles. Potentially an unpopular opinion. Simply because I think with Shinsuke, they have made everything everything about his character since his main roster debut has been kind of like momentous. The big moments have happened where big moments are meant to happen, like at WrestleMania. I think they'll wait for this for SummerSlam, would be my personal thought. And the reason is that coming off of this week's SmackDown, to have Shinsuke Nakamura be the one standing tall or bending very low, I think signifies that in a no DQ match, AJ may come out as the winner. Because so far we've been seeing an AJ Styles who's going to play by the rules, an AJ Styles who will play by the rules, who wants to be the better man, who wants to be the better competitor in the face of a low blow. But I think what the no DQ stipulation really allows for is us to see like that little bit of AJ Styles that like could give a fuck. Who's like, I do play the game dirty. I have played that game dirty. I will do that if you want me to. And I think that we haven't seen it because he's been trying to be like honorable about the situation. But when that's no longer a rule, that's no longer being the champion at that point isn't about being the better man. It's about winning the match. And I think if you're going to ask someone to win the match, AJ Styles has a lot of cards up his sleeve that we have not seen in the past couple of weeks. And I think they'd rather have him retain and have him lose it at SummerSlam.
Cool.
That's my thought. What you got?
I have Shinsuke because I do think this is a momentous moment for AJ Styles because he will main event his first pay-per-view. And I think he will go up against Nakamura and he will get punched many times in the penis and lose. I think now is the right time because Nakamura will never have a better reason to be fighting for this championship. And I think they will definitely feud over the title until SummerSlam. But I do think that AJ is going to lose it this time. As sad as that makes me, because he is a great champion, I do think it's Nakamura's time. You need to capitalize on the heel turn. I thought it was going to happen at the Greatest Royal Rumble. It did not happen there because I guess the show doesn't even really exist in history anymore. It was going to happen at Backlash if the Greatest Royal Rumble didn't exist. Me speak English, very good. Yeah, I think it's going to be Shinsuke. And he does no speak English, which I think is a hilarious thing for him to say, turning around like something super racist on himself.
It's such
and I love it. I love it. I love heel Shinsuke. I think he'll be a great champion if he does in fact win, and I get all of the points.
You will get all the points.
Thank
Do
you.
the evil laugh again. I liked it.
No, absolutely not.
Please?
No.
Oh,
So, that has been our predictions for the upcoming Backlash pay-per-view this Sunday. Team Super Little, Super Big, Very Little, Very Big. I don't even know what our name is.
Less little, less big?
Less Little, Less Big, and More Stupid, Less Remember is our team. And now we'll finish off the show the way we do every single week, and that is with our Stars of the Night. Our number 3 star of the night this week from SmackDown Live is The Miz, because he is holding not one, but 2 feuds on his shoulders, giving any sort of interest into the United States Championship feud between Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy, completely carrying it on his shoulders this week on Miz TV, while feuding over the Intercontinental Championship across the brand. So, yeah.
We love The Miz. Number 2 goes to the Irish Lass Kicker, Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch not only always gives a strong performance, and it's always great to see her on TV, but this week we had the chance to see her have that little nugget of character development. And we hope that means we're going to be seeing a lot more of her. But anything that she does gets us reinvested in her, and that is really why she is on this list.
Fingers crossed she's also on TV in the future. And our number 1 star of SmackDown Live this week is Shinsuke Nakamura for, I believe, the 3rd time in the last 4 weeks. He is killing it. He is the most interesting character on SmackDown Live right now, by our estimation, and he makes the world title feud super interesting and way more deep than just a let's have a dream match that everyone wants to see. So hopefully we'll see an awesome combination of Styles and Nakamura this weekend on Sunday at Backlash.
So congratulations, Shinsuke. You deserve it. Well, that'll do it for us here at Tag Me In Bro. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Tag Me In Bro. Subscribe to the podcast. We are on Podbean. We are on TuneIn. We are on iHeartRadio. We are on iTunes and SoundCloud. I remembered them all this
amazing.
Week. Right? Thank you. Please be proud of me. As always, we want to know what you liked, what you disliked, what you hated, any thoughts, comments, questions, answers that you have. So don't be afraid to tweet at us, tweet with us. For my co-host, Chami Rowe, I've been Taryn O'Connor. We will see you on, I guess, kind of on Sunday for Backlash, in that Joe will be posting all of the scorecard updates. Make sure to vote in the prediction polls. You guys get a prediction vote. You guys won the Greatest Royal Rumble post of prediction.
Very smart people.
Very smart people. So thank you again for listening to Tag Me In Bro. We will see you next week for another episode of SmackDown Live. Goodbye, Universe.
Goodbye, Universe.
Welcome Welcome to the continued podcast adventures of Superhero Speak.
How do you measure success?
But I think many of the people that love this character and that love superheroes in general have used these stories as inspiration to say, you know what? I'm going to do something good in the world. I'm going to make a difference like my hero when I was a kid.
That is my fondest memory of it, because when you're doing comic books, you want them to affect people. You want people to care. You want to strike emotions. And I knew that Clone Saga was striking a lot of emotions.
Can you imagine Pulp Fiction starring Goofy and Mickey Mouse?
I can totally imagine that.
I'm sure somebody's written that one too.
Quarter pounder with cheese and France, Mickey? What? Boy ale with cheese. Yeah. I can totally.
See?
I would watch the hell out of that movie.
Yes, I gladly sacrifice at my progeny to you, almighty Marvel beast.
Neil Adams is somewhere going, it's my time.
You can find us at superheroespeak.com. You can download it anywhere podcasts are available. Everyone, thanks for listening. As always, don't let your cake get caught in the door.